When you get into B2B, it's much more complicated. There's usually multiple decision makers, right? So it's not just the guy that you're talking to on the phone, it's the finance, it's the marketing department, it's the operation manager, or whatever product or service that you sell. They're not going to buy instantly, almost ever. And the reason why is there's contracts involved, and you're usually competing against multiple people at the same time, knowingly.
One of the things that I figured out pretty easily is a lot of times dentists will ask me like, how did you get my information? So it really starts at the beginning with figuring out who it is that you're targeting. And then it's okay, where can I find these doctors and these decision makers information? So for me, like what I do is I use web crawlers and scrapers to identify and find them and put them into this big massive database in this list. And then from there, verify their emails, make sure it's accurate, find out their location count.
How do you feel about personal brands? I know in the dental industry, they're not very popular. Like everybody tries to separate it and they just, no one wants to really be the face of a brand, but it's huge in everything else. For me, I have my personal brand. It's The Gary Bird on all the social media platforms. And then I kind of bridge that personal brand to SMC through podcasting. Welcome to another episode of Dental Marketing Theory. I'm your host, Gary Bird. I'm the founder of SMC National, where we help you create, convert, and close more new patients so you can grow the way that you want. And today I have a special guest, Tyler Murdock, who's the owner of Align Profits. And we're going to dive in what it takes to be in B2B marketing. Now, you may be wondering, Gary, what in the world does that have to do with me? I'm B2C. Why should I care about this? You are going to find it really interesting what it takes for B2B marketing to work and how it impacts you. And also, if you're a vendor or an industry partner, this is going to be really valuable information for you. So you're going to want to stay tuned. All right, Tyler, we are live and I'm excited to have this conversation with you. Why don't you tell us how you got into the dental industry?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I really didn't have a choice, to be honest, because my dad is a dentist. And so I grew up, I'm the oldest of four. So I literally remember everything from dental school, from him starting his practice to now where he's, getting closer to retirement, that type of thing. So yeah, I just, I'm a big fan of if you have something that you know really well, then just take that and run with it. And so that's what I've done. I did a dental marketing agency out of my dorm room in college, and after COVID happened and everything, I then took a break from the dental space and came back last year. I was pulled into it through some people that wanted me on their team for their sales. And so now what I do is I own a marketing agency for vendors, not for dental offices, but for vendors. And I help vendors make really good connections with doctors in a non-spammy and natural way. So that's what I do, is I help dental vendors be less obnoxious for dental practices, and I help dental vendors actually get the deals that they want with dental practices. So I'm like,
that's awesome
too. So.
That's so cool. And this is really needed because and just so everybody understands, we're like cousins companies, right? So like we do dental marketing, you do dental marketing, but I am B2C and you are B2B. So just so the audience understands, B2C is business to customer. So my job is to help businesses get more customers, which are patients for the dental offices. You are B2B, meaning you help businesses get other businesses as customers. And most people are go, okay, well, what's the big deal? It's totally different. Like it couldn't be anything further from each other in the marketing world. And let me give a couple reasons why, and then I'm going to start asking you some questions, because I really think what you do is super needed. There's not a lot of support for businesses inside the dental industry. And so I'm really excited to learn more about what you're doing. But just a quick breakdown. So B2C is much easier to attract customers. I think it is anyways, because I've been doing it forever. But I think it's a lot easier because you have one decision maker. That decision maker has a need, and it's usually pretty instant. Like they want it now, and they're going to call and they get them in within the next week or so. And when they come in, you have a conversation with them. And it's pretty straightforward. So think of somebody that buys dental, or somebody who buys food, or somebody who wants a new pair of shoes. It's a very one-to-one transaction, okay? When you get into B2B, it's much more complicated. And the reason it's more complicated is there's usually multiple decision makers, right? So it's not just the guy that you're talking to on the phone, it's the finance, it's the marketing department, it's the operation manager, or whatever product or service that you sell. There's usually multiple people deciding. They're not going to buy instantly, almost ever. And the reason why is there's contracts involved, there's seasonality, there's budget resets, and you're usually competing against multiple people at the same time knowingly. They're going to tell you, oh yeah, we're looking at 4 or 5 people, where somebody who comes into your dental office, they may have gone to other people first, but they're sitting with you and you can sell them right at that moment without them buying from anybody else. But B2B doesn't work that way. You're always competing against multiple people. Did I get that right, in your opinion?
Yes.
Hey, sorry to interrupt the show, but I got a question that came from one of our viewers, and I wanted to share it with you really quickly. And this is our segment of Ask Gary. So you can send in any of your questions about dental marketing or anything that you're doing to grow your office, and we'll do our best to answer your question. You can leave a comment, you can DM us, or you can email us at askgary@smcnational.com. So today's question came from Becky, and what she asked was, what do you prescribe as a comprehensive marketing strategy to grow your practice? And there's really 2 sides of this. So you have your internal new patients. These are your patient referrals or doctor referrals. And you have your external new patients, which are going to be new patients that are coming from things like marketing and location and insurances and things like that. And so it's really important, before you even talk about a comprehensive marketing strategy, that you actually have a target of where you want to get to. So how many new patients do you want to get to? And then you need to delineate where each section is going to come from. Meaning, if you want 100 new patients a month, how many patient referrals are you going to get a month? And how many are going to come from external marketing sources? The reason this is so important is patient referrals are the best kind of new patients, but they're the hardest to scale. And external patients are some of the worst patients you can get. They're very hard to work with, and they are the hardest to close, but it's the only way that you can really scale. And the goal is to turn those external new patients that are coming from marketing into patient referrals internally. To do that, you have to first have a goal and you have to have a target. From there, then you can start conversating around, okay, how to get these new patients into your office. As an example, you can first start with digital marketing. I like digital marketing because you can track everything, and you need to figure out what your cost per lead, what your cost per acquisition is to get a new patient in from digital. Then you can start testing other forms of marketing to see how it stacks up. Typically, digital is going to be the cheapest, so I like starting there. And then you can work in other things. You can work in postcards or television, depending on how many locations you have, and other things that are out there. So that's the short answer. There's a much longer question or answer to that. And so I just wanted to give you the short answer for the sake of time. Enjoy the rest of the show.
Yes, you got that right. It's way different. It's a completely different beast. And from my experience, it's almost like a completely different, speaking a different language. So with treatment acceptance, with, let's say, for example, for the clinical side of the audience here, it's that you're wanting to get them to start on Invisalign, right? It's usually very small amount of people involved. Maybe they have to talk to their spouse, but a lot of times people have the buying power right then and there. And so with dental vendor or B2B inside the dental space, it's very different. And by the way, if you are clinical, like, this does apply to you, because I know of so many doctors and so many people in the space who then transition out of clinical or start their own business or have this idea. So this is really relevant to a lot of different people here. But it really just, for me, like, my experience with it is it's all about connections, but having the patience and the understanding that you're not going to always get the deal right away, but really building up that pipeline is what they say in the sales world, right? Building out your pipeline, making sure you have enough people, because if you don't have enough, and let's just say that you're like a rep for Henry Schein or something, or you work for a company, as you know, right? If you don't have enough sales appointments on your calendar, you're going to be broke. There's a saying that I've heard that's empty calendar equals empty bank account. And so that's really the big problem that we solve, is helping you to not have an empty calendar, because it's like planting seeds. If you don't plant seeds now, you're not going to be able to eat later. So that's really
the other thing I would add for our audience, if you're listening to this, and obviously if you're a vendor like I am, then this is like super crucial to understand. But if you're a dentist, this is also crucial to understand, because this is how people are going to sell to you. So either way, you're going to get value out of this. And I'm excited. And one of the things about the schedule, we use what's called a weighted pipeline. And so what we have is we have a 7-step process that we take a sales person through, or an account, or a potential client through. And let's say that account's going to spend $10,000 a month with us. Well, in the first stage, which is identify that they're a potential client and they're worth $10,000, you might only get 5% of that. So that's only worth $500 in your weighted pipeline. And then when you move them to the next stage, you move them to maybe 10% of that. So now you have $1,000. And each time you move them down the line, the pipeline gets more and more weighted in your favor, because there's a higher chance that you're going to close them the further down the pipeline that you go. So we use weighted pipeline. But yes, you have to have a pipeline to be able to survive. Now let's talk through this from my perspective. So if I was a potential customer, our ideal customer is 5 to 10 locations, give or take a little bit. They have to be growth minded. So I need dentists that are like, no, we want to grow. Who we don't want to work with are people who are like, I don't really want to grow. I don't need to grow. And maybe I just want to refresh my website, or maybe I just want to, do some social media posting to kind of look cool out there. These are the wrong kind of clients for us. So we want those 5 to 10 locations, give or take, right? And we want them to be really thinking about growth. How am I? And a lot of the comments that we get a lot of times is, I want to grow to 50 to 100 practices. Those are like our common customers that talk and think that way. So walk me through your process of how you would help somebody like me.
Yeah, for sure. So how it starts, and a lot of this process came from my own experiences selling to dental offices when I was in college, and I was I wanted to grow and have clients, right? And so I was trying all these different things. And one of the things that I figured out pretty easily is, and dentists, this is really like, a lot of times dentists will ask me like, how did you get my information? Or how are all these people getting information? Well, I'm going to spill the beans here and tell you a little bit. So it really starts at the beginning with figuring out, like you said, identifying who it is that you're targeting, and really getting granular on that. And then it's, okay, where can I find these doctors and these decision makers information? So for me, like, what I do is I use a lot of technology to use web crawlers and scrapers to identify and find them and put them into this big, massive database in this list. And then from there, what I do is I clean it out and verify their emails, make sure it's accurate, find out their location count. Then I go to the NPI database, which you can access, and I could go deep into that, but NPI is great because what you can do with that is really verify they're a practicing dentist. And then from that, then we meet with our clients and talk through what's worked in the past, look at into their numbers, their pipeline, their conversion rates, all the data. And then we come up with some hypotheses of what would work. And then we A/B test that. And we're pretty dynamic in that we figure out what's working. And then we add on that, like, just like with Facebook ads. I don't know, Gary, I'm guessing you also do like social media ads and SEO, that type of stuff. It's very similar, but it's different in the way that we are using primarily email as a way to reach these people and reach their inbox. And there's so much to it. There's so many pieces of having the right messaging and having the right deliverability of the email, which gets in the tech aspects of it. So it's really exciting. There's a lot of pieces, but it's really all about finding the right person and creating a relevant offer and relevant message that will get them to respond. And then we book the appointment. So yeah.
That's awesome. So what are some things that people need to really think through before they step into this field? Because obviously there's a lot of vendors out there, but a lot of people work off referrals and kind of working events. That's been the traditional way of finding customers in the dental industry, is kind of go to the events, talk to people, try to get some customers drummed up, and just go to all the events. So a lot of people who haven't marketed before, they really don't understand this process. So what are some things that people need to really think through or understand before they jump in and start working with somebody like yourself to produce results?
Yeah, and I tend to data dump because I love this stuff and I'm passionate. So my last response was a little bit like, whoa, drinking out of a fire hose. It's really like the big thing you got to know or look at is, okay, how can I make more offers? How can I get in front of more of the right people? And look at it from the numbers game. You look at a sale. So like, for example, when you're going to an event, like we just got done with Dykema, right? Like, it's all about, so at that point, you're just trying to build the brand awareness. You're there, and maybe you're hoping some DSO people will come over to your booth and talk to you. It's very similar to that, but it's, instead of just going to an event, you're basically gamifying it to where you don't have to always wait for a referral or wait for an event to happen. You can recreate that same type of interactions, but do it in a way that's authentic. And that's through sending them emails and not doing, obviously don't spam them, but you got to do it in a way that will get them to be like, oh, that sounds interesting. So like, for example, we have a client and she'd be okay with me sharing this, but with what she does and their company, their startup, is they focus particularly on sleep apnea. And so what we've done is we've created a campaign where we're reaching only those doctors that are sleep apnea doctors. And then we give them a kind of like what you were saying, like of a weighted pipeline where it's a free offer. So we say, hey, do you want a free consultation on XYZ? And a lot of times if it's the right targeting and the right person and the right offer, then you're going to get your foot in the door. You're going to be able to actually have a conversation instead of just talking about yourself. That's the big thing. So don't just sit there and talk about yourself and how great your company is.
You can't sell all the time. Yeah. You can't sell. That's the number one thing yeah. No one cares. Yeah.
Yeah. No one cares. No one wants to learn about you. They really care about how you can help them. And so that's the biggest thing I see. So reps or anyone who's reaching out to them through cold email, it does work. Like I've had people tell me like cold email doesn't work. And I'm like, no, it does. If you do it the right way, if you're reaching out to them in a way that's not just, hey, look at how cool I am, or hey, you gotta
buy this now, $9.99.
Yeah, I like to think of it as dating, or like or high school, or like even if you're on Tinder or something. If your like profile is like, oh, like I'm the coolest person ever, and it's just you just talk about yourself and stuff during dating or anything like that, like people are gonna be like, you're not gonna attract any dates that way. You got to really be good at figuring out what it is that they need, and then showing that you're the best provider for that. So
yeah, it's we call it lead nurturing, right? So a lot of times most people don't realize that they're being nurtured, right? And so you have top of funnel or tofu, and you have bottom of funnel, brofu, right? Top of funnel, bottom of funnel. So for us, I'll just give you an example. Like for me, my personal brand, Gary Bird, is like super duper top of funnel. So I don't really talk too much about dental on there because I want to get as many views or opportunities for people to see it. If it comes up, it's fine. And I'm typically talking about right now I'm talking a lot about inflation, making videos about inflation or customer service at Starbucks, stuff like that. Why? Because I can get eyeballs. And then when people get eyeballs on there, they're either going to love it or they hate it, or you shouldn't have done that, or do this instead, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? So that's top of funnel. Then you start moving down. If you click on my links, you get into some of my content, you're going to see, oh, Gary has some podcasts. And you're going to get in there and that's how you and I've met, right? You were like, hey, Gary, I listened to your podcast. And so it's like, okay, so that now you're a little bit lower in my funnel. Now I know you're in the dental industry if you're listening to one of my podcasts, because they're all dental focused. Then from there, you're going to push down a little bit further, and you're going to get into my company's newsletter. So we have a monthly newsletter that we send out that has all this marketing news and different things like that. And then from there, there's going to be a lead nurturing sequence where we start to send you information about marketing and how to make your marketing better and how to do this differently. Or are you more into full arch or pediatric or GP? And then as you start to click on those things inside of my funnel, it's going to earmark you like, hey, this is an interested person that's visited your website, that's watched your content, that's listened to this part. And then most of the time, not always, but most of the time, I know that where that person is and how close they are to being ready to buy dental marketing from us, so to speak, because they've gone through our funnel. So that's how we think through kind of lead nurturing. How do you guys look at that, or how much of that do you help people with?
Yeah, so it's a little bit different. So with a consumer business or more of the B2C side of things, it is like I think of like Amazon a lot of times. That's like a really good example of B2C, where it's just like you're searching for something and that's how you help your clients. But like with your B2B funnel that you're talking about, it really is important to look at to help them to see that you are the right person to help them, and to help them help them to feel comfortable and confident in your solution, because B2B is very complex. And the thing that I found is that when I'm working with, I work a lot with CMOs, CROs, director of sales, like those type of people. When they are trusting me, I have to look at that as their job could be on the line, right? Like they have to, there's a risk on their end as well of, oh my goodness, like if I work with Align Profit and Tyler Murdock's company and it doesn't work, then it makes me look bad, right? And so I have to really build a lot of trust and value. And so that's exactly it. You gotta figure out, okay, like begin with the end in mind, but it's more relationship based and instead of just, okay, I'm going to spam them. So that's the biggest misconception I see with outbound is you're cold calling or you're emailing them or you're DMing them. And it's just, you're just trying to like game the system in a way that's taking the human aspect of it. Yes, you do have to have your numbers lined up and figure out what that is. But if you're not offering something people don't want, like if you're not offering something people want, and if you're not starting small, just like the whole dating example, you don't, on Tinder, you don't say, hey, marry me, right? Yeah. Like right out of the gate, you have to build up to where they're ready to start a relationship with you if you're dating someone, right? So it's the same thing. And with B2B, the thing that I think is interesting about it more than anything is that you have to, it's like dating, but let's like add a layer where you have to like take them to you have to meet the parents, right? Because it's not just you that's making the decision. It's like the CEO, it's the whole team. You have to get everyone on board. And so branding really is such an important part of it. And so with what we do and setting appointments and sales and stuff, we have to make sure that we're pointing people to the brand, not just hey, we want your money, but it's, hey, like, check out our brand, check out how great we are at building that trust, because if they don't have the trust, then they're not going to do business with you no matter what. So it's really about trust. So.
Okay, I'm going to ask you a question. It may not be in your business scope, but I'm really interested in your opinion. So how do you feel about personal brands? I know in the dental industry, they're not very popular. Like everybody tries to separate it and they just, no one wants to really be the face of a brand, but it's huge in everything else. So what are your thoughts in the dental industry when it comes to, like, for me, I have my personal brand. It's The Gary Bird on all the social media platforms. And then I kind of bridge that personal brand to SMC through podcasting. So people connect with me, but then now they start to find out about my business. And then my personal brand, I do like higher level content, higher funnel, I should say, content. There's a little more fluffy, a little more light. It's not dental specific necessarily. So what are your thoughts on that?
That's a really good question. I would say that even if you don't think you have a personal brand, you already do. So it's not it's not something that you can get away from. It's important that you separate that, though, in some ways. So for example, if you're working for someone else, like Gary, you and I are different. We own our businesses, that type of thing. But if you're a sales development representative or a VP of sales or something for another company, it is so, like, I would highly, highly recommend that you look at LinkedIn as your personal brand, not your company's brand, but your personal brand. Yeah. And so make sure that you're adding value. It's all about giving. That's what lead gen is. It's just giving. Yep. So that's all you just think about, like, how can I?
Well, and if you're a sales rep, that moves with you. So if you go to another company, you take it with you and you're building value. So I know there's certain sales reps in the industry I want to work with because I see them everywhere and I don't care where they work. I just know that I want to connect with them and because they're out there. And then there's other sales reps I've never even heard of or never seen before because they're not putting themselves out there.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. Yeah, it's really important to make sure that you're not looking at it as like, oh, like I'm working for X company, so all my posts need to be about this. But it's really about how can I add value to the industry? How can I be seen? When you're at the shows, it's so fun. Like, and Gary, I'm sure you get this too. Like people are like, hey, I follow you on LinkedIn. And you know that you're adding value, and that's something that brings me a ton of fulfillment. And it's not just about money. Like, of course, business is about making money, but it's also about helping people. And so when you're able to build that brand it's going to come back to you. It's just karma. Like there's not, you can't stop it. It's going to come back to you in some way or another.
Well, attention's the new oil. So if you can get attention, it's very valuable. Attention is very valuable. Now, here's where I think that the dental industry's slacking big time. I'd love your thoughts on this. It's a little bit off base of what you do, but I just want your thoughts. So I think, like right now, if I said, hey, what's it like to work at a DSO? Unless you've worked at a DSO, you have no idea what it's like, right? And then the worst part about all this is, and this is true for all industries, but it's prevalent in dental, when you hear people talk about working at a DSO publicly, what do they always do? Oh, it's great. It's so wonderful. Everything's so great. But we know it's not that way. We know when they're having private conversations with me or with you, man, it's hard. Man, it's hard running this company. Man, it's hard being B2B. Man, it's hard running a DSO. And if someone was to take their personal brand and say, hey, I'm going to show you behind the curtain of our dental group, it would absolutely kill, and it would help with recruiting. It would help more sales, like whatever you're trying to do, it would only help. What do you agree with that, or you think I'm off base on that a little bit?
I don't know. So I have seen both. So vulnerability, it's kind of a hot topic right now with social media, like be vulnerable, blah, blah, blah. Sometimes I think it's like trying to hotwire a car and it doesn't work because it's like, it makes you look like you're trying to be vulnerable, but you're not actually being real. So I think of it as this, like if the way that I look at it is with those type of things, vulnerability is great, but it has to also have power. So you have to be in a place of leadership. And so if you're like trying to be vulnerable, but you're not necessarily a leader in the industry, it doesn't carry the same weight as if like Gary came and like said some things, or if you're like a CEO of a dental group, then that's different. So I think that being real and raw can be great, but it's also not the best way to. It really depends. Like I don't know. I just say that because I've seen cringe posts. Like there was this one that I saw of this CEO that was crying.
The crying CEO. I was literally thinking of that when you were talking. Yes, I know. He got like roasted.
Yeah.
Go.
For layoffs. So just for those who don't know, like he like laid off a ton of people, and then he like posted this thing about like him crying, and it was a picture of him crying on LinkedIn, and it became viral for all the wrong reasons, and I feel bad for that poor guy.
People were like, yeah, they ripped, bro. That was a lot of negative attention.
Yeah, exactly. And so with your brand, there's a few things that, and I'm not like, I've done stuff with social media. Mostly this is cold email that we do.
I get it. This isn't your service. I'm just more interested in your opinion.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm just giving that with a caveat of like, I am not quite an expert in branding per se, but I do know from my experience that what I found actually works is when I'm not in a mindset of I'm going to get a lot of likes, I'm going to get a lot of clicks, I'm going to get like when I'm actually just there to serve, that's when that's when magic happens. But if I'm coming from a place of how can I make this post go viral, it actually usually flops when I'm in that kind of headspace. So
agreed. All right. So
yeah,
we could probably talk further about this for a long time, but Tyler, I know there's people out there listening, and they probably either have one or two questions. Number one, if they're a dentist, they're probably like, how do I get off all those lists that you just talked about? Or number two, if they're a vendor, they're probably like, okay, how can you help me? So what's the best way to get in contact with you?
Yeah, so the best way to get in contact with me is through LinkedIn, actually. So you can go to Tyler. So it's /Tyler B Murdock. B as in boy, Tyler B Murdock with a K. And that's the best. You can find me on LinkedIn. We have a website. It's Aligned to Profit. So aligned with an ED, alignedprofit.com. And that's our website. And so, yeah, we really, what we do is we do a pipeline audit. So we look at all of your current processes and help you. And if it makes sense, then we talk about what that would look like. And we are performance-based, which makes us unique in that we win when you win. So it's a good deal for everyone.
If you need help with this kind of stuff, reach out to my man, Tyler. Tyler, I will be sending some people your way for sure. Awesome job today. Thank you so much for the opportunity to talk with you. Good catching up with you at Dykema. You have a good one.
All right. Thanks, Gary.